So here we are, 1st of January 2022. So it's time to look back and reflect on what's happened on the channel in 2021. And then starts May. May saw the announcement which I seem to take the retailers by surprise, that Behringer were finally able to release the RD9. So the order sheet came up on the local retailer's website and I ordered it. That was May. It turned up just before Christmas. So videos about the RD9 will be in 2022. Richard, fellow South Coast synth nut, lent me his Roland JX8P, and I was able to do a series of videos on that particular platform. I didn't have it for very long, but I think I managed to sort of get the essence of what I thought of the JX8P. And the other thing that was really interesting in May was Behringer were ramping up their marketing and continuing to tease us with pictures of future instruments that were currently being reimagined in the Behringer Skunk Works. I'm thinking of the Yamaha CS80 was one of the particular ones which Behringer were rebranded as DS80. Now I noticed that this was really ramping up from the beginning of 2021, and we get to kind of about May and all of a sudden the ramp up starts to slow down to the point where we're not seeing very many more photographs from the Behringer feed about new instruments that they had been tantalising us with. Now, if you take a look at the RD9 experience, they said that they were available in May. I've just received it. Okay, so that's what, 5 to 7 months it's taken for that particular instrument, roughly, to arrive from the point I ordered it when Behringer said they were making them. This is probably very indicative of the issues facing a lot of the manufacturers at the moment in terms of their ability to get hold of the relevant chips. I heard rumours just before Christmas that Behringer was stopping production of the MS1, and I have to be honest and say I'm quite surprised by that, because it's a relatively new device. It was only pushed to the market in late 2019, so it's had less than 2 years, and the reason for that production being ceased is the fact that they are struggling to get hold of the components that actually go inside the machine. And I suspect it's not all the components, but I suspect there are key components that they can't get hold of, and therefore are having to cease production of that particular unit. And as somebody sort of turned around on Facebook and said, you know, when these things cease production, all of a sudden their price starts to increase on the second-hand market. The other thing that arrived in May is a whole raft of peripherals for the CX5M, and I've still got to make those videos. Hopefully when I get back into the Goldfish Bowl, I'll sit down over some evenings and show you some of the stuff that I've got for the CX5M. Some of it's games, so it might not be interesting to music people, but other bits of it are cartridges, such as the recent cartridge I acquired for the new DX7 voicing programmer, something like that. And finally, I got round to publishing the results of the retrobrighting experiment that I had undertaken. It took me so long to piece this together because it was so bitty, because it was being filmed over several days, actually probably over several weeks. So it was very bitty, and it took a long time to assemble it into something that was reasonable, that could be released to you guys to see actually what I did and what the results were. I have to be honest and say my results from doing this process were quite positive. And that brings to the end May. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Then we come to August. And you're going to say, what happened to June and July? Well, June and July actually were basically wipeout months for me. Very quiet in terms of the channel. And I kept catching all kinds of various bugs. I also managed to get a mini break-in as well. But yeah, I keep catching various bugs this year, and I think it's because my body is so low that it's just susceptible to bugs being around. So June and July, I was quite ill. Then we come into August, and in August Richard lent me his Roland JX 3P, and I did a series of videos about that particular synth. Richard was also kind enough in the end of August to lend me the Korg Poly 61, and I did a series of videos on the Korg Poly 61, and I have to be honest and say they have been the worst received videos that this channel has ever made, for various reasons. Number one, I didn't have enough time with the synth, and I've admitted that. But number two, the sounds that I was hearing on that synth weren't the sounds that you guys were describing to me. So I've done a video apologising for those series of videos, and we'll close that sort of part of the channel's history. Another thing that came to light in August, which was a very interesting read, was details of cartel activity between the big manufacturers of the instruments that we all use and some of the biggest retailers in Europe, and there was several instances that were noted around the fines that have been issued to these various organisations for cartel activity. And cartel activity is effectively where you all band together to keep a price at a price point, or not sell particular instruments or stuff, let's put it that way, to specific areas of the market. That was a very interesting read, and it was very interesting by some of the names that were involved in that particular cartel activity. I'm not going to discuss it here because there is a video to talk about it. September comes along and I acquire a Muse receptor. Now, I have in the past been quite anti VSTs. I don't tend to like using VSTs, but I thought Muse was an interesting concept and I probably should have a look at it, and it was offered to me at a reasonable price, so I acquired it. And while I've undertaken some work on this platform for videos for the channel, I think there's a lot more to come on the Muse receptor. It's very sketchy on the internet, especially YouTube, about how this thing all hangs together. So I quite like the unit. I quite like the whole concept behind Muse. I've always said that. I just think it's a shame that the company's gone belly up, and their idea of longevity of support and doing the right things when the company goes into administration is pea poor, and we'll leave it at that. September also saw me do an oddball video about a disco light. So in a former life I was a DJ at some point, and I've still got disco lights that are floating around in storage, and one of them got broken when I moved down here. So I did an oddball video about repairing that, and then I showed this in action in the workshop mini disco, and I've had a number of people DM me privately about the workshop mini disco that I did, showing off how this light worked. It was quite fun actually doing that. It brought back some memories. September also saw me start to revamp the workshop. So all this that you see around me all started in September. Predominantly it started because I was running out of power sockets, because originally there was just 2 power sockets on the wall about there, and everything had to be powered off them. But what I was finding was it was increasingly difficult to continue to power stuff off these 2 sockets and have extension leads running everywhere. It wasn't particularly practical. So now the way I've got it now is that there's lights here that are powered off sockets, there's lights here that are powered off sockets, and there's all these sockets here. And while I'm not drawing a huge amount of power, you know, the way it's been done on all the USB sockets makes life a hell of a lot easier when I'm out here working on instruments and other stuff, because I can have multiple things plugged in. The other thing that arrived after September was this blue pegboard, which has allowed me to get a lot of the common used tools excuse me, out, so that it's just easy reach rather than having to go into a tool bag all the time. That makes a hell of a difference. Having my batteries all on permanent charge makes a hell of a difference. Having my Dremel there makes a hell of a difference. It's just far easier to actually get hold of the tools that I want when I need them very quickly. So that started in September. I think the last piece went up in November. So excuse me, that was 2 months worth of work. This is where things started to dry up. So October, Richard lent me his Gino 106 to do a series of videos, and I've still got a bunch of videos or a bunch of footage that I shot in post waiting for me to get round to actually arrange it into something that potentially can be published. So watch out for those. I'm hoping to have those finished and published in January. And then we move on to November, and probably the highlight of my year for 2021 was actually being able to see Genesis live in concert at the beginning of November. And in fact, I was so incredibly lucky to be able to go and see them, because the following night, which was the night I was actually going for when I had to rebook the tickets, and again was sold out. Genesis actually cancelled due to COVID, so I saw them on the Thursday night and they were fab. Of course, it did involve me having to go up to Scotland because I booked the tickets at the Hydro, which is in Glasgow, and I live on the south coast, which is 400 and something miles away, probably more like 500 miles away from where I live now. So I had to go up to Scotland, and it's a long story, but the bottom line was when I booked the tickets on the dates that the original dates that they were due to be performing, I was due to be in Scotland. So there you go, that is reality. The next thing I did in November was I sat down and looked at a whole raft of comments I was receiving on the channel, and these were common questions around the ARIA gear, specifically the Roland MX1 and the Roland TB3. And I sat down and thought, I keep answering the same question over and over again. I'll just video the questions out now. So I collated those into a series of common themes, and I did a set of videos in November that was related to those specific platforms and the questions that you guys constantly ask. And the other thing that happened at the end of November was Korg quietly discontinued the Kronos. There was no fanfare, there was no real announcement. It was just quietly started to disappear from the websites. It was initially noticeably absent from the new UK website, which was launched at the end of November. But by the time I actually got round to recording and publishing a video for the channel, it disappeared from the Korg.com and other Korg websites worldwide. Very interesting that there was no fanfare, no announcement, but the Kronos has died. I'm particularly sad to see the Kronos go, because I love playing my Kronos, and people who watch the channel know that I love playing my Kronos. I haven't done very much on the Kronos on the channel, but I still love playing it. It is one of my utterly go-to keyboards when I want to do stuff. So the bottom line with the Kronos is that other manufacturers have been trying to emulate the Kronos on their platforms for a number of years, some succeeding better than others. So the question really is now, I can't wait to see what Korg come out with to basically lift the bar to the next level. And finally we get to December, and I wrote in my notes, not a lot happened. Which then translated into notes for the channel, which I probably shouldn't really bother reading now because I just said not a lot happened. It had been rather a quiet month is what I wrote here. And the only notable fact is the fact that it hasn't arrived on the channel because I haven't done the video for it. But actually the reason why the Korg T1 is sitting there at the moment is because I've stripped all the end panels off it and sent them off to get them remade in hardwood. In fact, they're being remade in mahogany. And then when those come back, I'll refit them to the T1 and show you the difference between before and after. I've been looking for new end pieces for the Korg T1 for quite a while, I'm looking for somebody to make them. And one of the things that's really interesting is I've approached a number of people about making the end panels, and basically the answer I got was not interested. And yet they're trying to, some of these people are trying to hawk replacement end panels for Junos and various other synths on the market. But reality is they're not interested, they're off doing other stuff. But I found a particular supplier, and when they come through from that particular supplier, I will publicise them, because that supplier will have done a good job. And if you want to go and get end panels from the same supplier, then I'll give you all the details. And that really was December, and that was the year in review. So the funniest thing about this is I wrote in my notes, next year, this year. What do I mean by that? Well, if publishing goes to plan, this video will arrive on the channel on the 1st of January 2022. Obviously I'm recording it before the 1st of January 2022, so I'm still in this year and thinking about next year, whereas by the time you see it, it will be next year thinking about this year. If that makes any sense to anyone, don't leave a comment. So what are the plans for the channel next year? The first plan is to reinstate the studio, reinstate a playing zone for me. And I'm not going to talk too much about this. I know I've hinted at this in recent videos over the last couple of months, but plans are still being discussed. I had an original idea and an original location, and that all kind of fell through for one reason or another. I'm not going to go into it because it's just far too boring. I might tell you at some point in the future, but at this point in time, that's where we are. So when the plans are more firm and, you know, handshakes are made and very little money is exchanged hands, then maybe I'll come back and tell you what the plans were. The other thing I'm going to do this year is spend more time playing. I haven't really spent a huge amount of time playing this year for one reason or another. So I intend to spend more time playing. I probably will spend more time just videoing me playing, because a number of you asked, you know, what happens when I play and what comes out of those sort of things. Well, maybe I'll just video some of it this year, and with the new sound recording equipment, it should be much easier to get a cleaner signal from the instrument. Having the signal come out through speakers like these things behind me, these are great speakers, by the way, but the problem is that your microphone, you're trying to adjust your microphone to a level that will allow it to record the voice clearly, and as soon as you start pumping music and especially bass notes out through these things, the microphone doesn't respond particularly well to that sort of environment, which is one of the sound issues I've mentioned. The other really important thing I want to get up and running is I want to get the themusictechguy.uk.com website up and running. Now, there is a website there. It's in its rudimentary format. I managed to get it published a few months back, but I really haven't had the time to spend putting the content up onto the onto that particular platform. I will be putting content up onto that platform a lot more going this year, and I've got the way I want to build it out. I've got a few things that I need to change. But if you want to go over to www.themusictechguy.uk.com website and subscribe there is a way of subscribing at the foot of the main homepage. Then you can start to see when things are published. You'll get an email from the website saying that there's new content if you want to go and read it. So please, if you want to subscribe, go and subscribe. The other thing I promised myself is all these repair jobs that I've got sitting around me at the moment. I say sitting around me because they're not here. they're in storage. But I've got a number of synthesizers that I've had for a while that do require repair jobs being done. And you know, I just want to finish the synthesizer repairs, make decisions on whether I'm going to keep the board or not, or whether I'm going to sell it on to somebody else who can use it. So I just want to get those all done and out of the way. I've got a couple of synthesizers that really are usable if it weren't for whatever it happened to be. So I really just want to get those done and dusted, and I will try and get those done and dusted over the winter months, assuming it's warm enough out here to actually do some work. So that's that one. And the other one I'd like to try and do is get the channel subscription up to about 5,000 by the end of the year. Now I know we're at 2,800 or more than 2,800, shall I say now. So you might say that 2,200 in a year is a tall order, given it's only gone 800 this year. But then having said that, it only went up by X amount the year before. So I think, you know, probably it is a tall order, but I'd like to be at 5,000 by the time we get to this point in 2022-23. That there are far more people saying hello and leaving comments. The actual commentary on the channel, the comments that are left by videos, are really, really interesting. I really enjoy reading your comments. I publish your comments, the good and the bad. Notably, things about the Poly 61 were some of the bad ones I've recently published. But you know, if you make your point and you make a fair point, then I will publish it. I'm not afraid to take criticism. I will not suffer foul language though. So if you can't be civil and you can't use proper describing words, then you will just get a ban. So there you go. But they're the things I want to do with the channel this year. Maybe I've got some other things I'm thinking about, but I really don't want to publicise at this point in time. But there's only one thing left to say, and that is, live long and prosper. And I hope you've had a very happy new year, and I hope 2022 is very prosperous for all of us. Bye bye.